The Oregon Shadow.
I'll take some time to type this. It's a little long, but still scares me every time I think about it, and I still can't comprehend it. When I lived in Oregon, I worked IT for the community college. I wasn't getting out until 9-10 p.m. by myself. It was a normal day like any other. By the time I left work, it was pitch black, and the thick underbrush made it even harder to see. This will be important later. I drove through town and finally got to the highway that led from Lincoln City to Corvallis, which was a long stretch of empty highway that ran 1+ hours through the forest. After about 45 minutes, I got to the hill that split into 2 lanes on both sides. As I accelerated in my tiny lawnmower of a car, I noticed something moving alongside the guardrail. Okay, I thought, it's a deer, no big deal, just slow down and avoid the cute little bugger. I was extra careful because that thick underbrush meant each side of the road would be a deep well of blackness that could have any little critters hiding there, waiting to jump into your windshield. Well, before I could finish that thought, I saw feet. If you're from Oregon, you know the homeless situation is abysmal. It wouldn't be too strange for one of them to be hitchhiking out here, but it was definitely out of sorts this late at night. Well, I decelerated to about 65, I was going 70+, and kept an eye on those white shoes walking up the road. By the time I actually realized those were legs and shoes walking, the man darted out in front of my Nissan in what I thought was a suicide attempt. I slammed on the brakes, trying to avoid him. I'm getting goosebumps just typing this, and ended up sliding sideways going 60 miles per hour in the opposite lane, while the man ran out in front of me, relentlessly.
All I could see was his red plaid shirt and his body as he hit the hood of my car. When I came to a stop, he was leaning on the hood, staring directly at me. The primal fear I felt was something I didn't even know existed. The high beams of my car didn't even pierce whatever this man was. It was the blackest shadow, a void. Then, in an instant, he vanished, gone. I was breathless, absolutely breathless, shaking, thought I'd killed someone. I sat in the opposite lane, sideways, breathing heavily for a minute or two. I couldn't help but scream at that point and pound on my accelerator to get out of there. I called my husband screaming and crying that I just killed a man, but that he disappeared and I didn't know what was happening. I left the scene. I know, illegal. By the time I got home, 30 minutes later, I was still shaking. I got out of my car and ran to the hood, seeing no dents, no handprints, nothing. I didn't sleep that night. Here's where it got more messed up. The next day at work, I researched deaths on that highway and found that a man rolled his truck with his wife and child inside. All 3 died. I highlighted his name and input it into Facebook. The first profile that came up was a memorial for that man. In his profile photo, he wore a red plaid shirt. I returned a few weeks later. In that same area where my skid marks were, was the guardrail. Tied to that guardrail was, and probably still is, a moldy child's toy, a rabbit. Something is deeply, deeply haunted about that highway. I'm just glad there wasn't anyone in the oncoming lane, or I too would be trapped there, along with that man, whoever he was.
Story 2. Whispers of the Childhood Home. For as long as I can remember, I've seen shadows and heard creaking, closing doors, misplaced items, and other unexplainable things throughout my childhood home. I've always watched horror movies and scared myself by reading creepypastas, which means I had several different escape routes planned out depending on where the serial killer that was obviously going to come for me tried to get in. One day, when I was in high school, I was home alone after school, sitting in the living room watching TV. From the mudroom that connected the living room to the garage, I heard a loud bang, like someone smashing their fist against the door connecting the garage and mudroom. Ran up to the kitchen with my phone, grabbed a knife, and peeked over the counter out the window towards the front of the house. No one is outside, no cars, and the garage door was still closed, meaning no one got into the garage. No wind slammed the door. I eventually talked myself out of the whole serial killer thing, but I haven't been able to explain it, and it hasn't happened again. A different night, my parents were gone when I went to sleep. I wake up to knocking on my bedroom door. My parents wouldn't have knocked to check in on me sleeping. Without access to a weapon, I froze, because obviously this time it's gonna be the serial killer, and just laid there for 10 minutes. Never heard any footsteps, nothing.
got up and went to my parents' room. They were both fast asleep, so it's not even like they had just come home when I heard the knocking.
A different day, I set a water bottle on the kitchen counter and continued walking towards the hallway. A couple seconds later, I hear the bottle fall. But when I get back into the kitchen, the bottle is across the room. Yet another day, I was home alone in the living room when I heard a sneeze from back towards the bedrooms. My first instinct was to say bless you. My second thought was, did my boyfriend leave 30 minutes ago? During college, I came home for a break. I had to sleep in a loft bed, and I brought my sister's dog up with me because she liked to cuddle. I was woken up by both the feeling and sound of someone climbing up the ladder, which I was very acquainted with at that time. I could feel my sister's dog against my leg, laying between me and the edge, when I felt something pet down the blanket, like they were petting the dog. I must have moved because the dog realized I was awake and immediately turned around to jump onto my chest with her ears down, shaking. The intensity of events has toned down quite a bit, but for a stretch of time, something wanted to make itself known.
Story 3. The Friend Who Followed. This story was my mom's. She passed away in 2021, but this is the creepiest story she told us. It was around late 1990s when my mom became friends with a neighbor that owns a small grocery store in our town. Not sure how my mom became close with her, but based on what I knew, the husband of the owner, who was a police officer, cheated on her and they're having a rough time. My mom comforted this lady a lot, to the point that they were best friends. Unfortunately, my family had to move to a different city, and since this was the late 1990s, there were no social media yet. My mom and her best friend lost touch with each other. A couple of months went by, and it was shown on the local news that the grocery owner took her husband's life by shooting him while he is sleeping, and then shot herself too. One night, my father wasn't home, and my siblings and I were sleeping with Mom. My mom had a dream, and in her dream, she was walking home with the grocery owner in a long, dark road. In her dream, my mom asked her, "Why are you walking this way? You live the other way." Her friend replied, "I'm dead. I'm just looking for you." My mom ran away as fast as she could, and when she reached our house in the dream, she woke up. Now, this is an important detail. The floor on the second floor of the house is made of bamboo strips, and between the gaps of the bamboo strip, you can see the floor below. A house like this was common back in the 90s to lessen heat inside the house, as we live in a tropical country. Relieved that it was only a dream, she stood up and was thinking of going to the bathroom downstairs when she saw someone below, between the gaps of the bamboo floor. It was looking up to her, like it wants to know that ghost was downstairs, like it followed her. My mom was so afraid that instead of going to the ground floor, she pissed in a cup of coffee instead. Funny F, but true.
A couple of years after that, a family who apparently doesn't believe in ghosts moved to the house of the grocery store owner and the police. The neighbors told them that a crime was committed in that house, but they didn't care. They were Mormons, I believe. One afternoon, the kid of the people who moved in that house was watching anime in the living room when the kid heard someone clearing his throat in the bedroom. When the kid looked at the bedroom, he saw a guy sitting on the bed asking him, "What are you doing in our house?" The family moved out in just a week. Years after, a tricycle driver, a tricycle is like a tuk-tuk in Thailand, like a mini taxi, happened to pass by the house of the grocery store owner around 3 a.m. According to the driver, he saw a woman waving her hand, calling his attention, like it needs a ride. He decided to go back because he thought that the lady is a passenger. The lady vanished like a smoke when he was finally near her, and this scared the shit out of the tricycle driver. He only learned of the story of the house in the morning when he told the neighbors what he saw. Until now, no one lived in that house.